Good afternoon.
Braden here, trying to foresee the unforeseeable in the U.S.
In this lesson, you'll learn about English auxiliary verbs and group work.
This conversation takes place in the afternoon at the office.
And it's between Jonathan and Sarah.
Jonathan and Sarah are co-workers, so they know each other. Therefore, the conversation is relaxed but still professional. Let's listen to the conversation. Okay, Sarah, we've got to map out and finalize the entire seminar schedule today.
I know. It should have been finished by now, but there have been so many unforeseeables.
Such as?
Well, I called Alexei Bradowski, and he said he wouldn't be able to come. So I took him off the list and redrafted the schedule because some of the panel discussions depended on him.
So we need to find someone else just like him.
No, that's the unforeseeable part. He called me about 15 minutes ago and said his secretary had made a mistake and that he'd be able to come.
I wonder how many other delegates will do the same thing.
Well, hopefully not many. It's hard enough creating this schedule without having to rewrite it every 5 days.
Just as a heads up, both Daniel Giesbrecht and Jeffrey Nye have requested a schedule of the seminar as soon as possible so they can begin structuring their remarks.
So, no pressure.
Exactly.
What do you think?
I think we're finishing up, but we need a bit more input from the committee in order to make the final decisions.
So, summarizing, we're done for today, but we still have some work to do?
Sounds about right. Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to talk a bit about group work.
In high school and college, students are frequently required to work in groups.
This group work is a form of cooperative learning. It aims to cater to individual differences, develop students' knowledge, their general skills, as well as attitudes.
In the commercial setting, group work tends to be more focused on the productivity of the group. In general, projects that require entire groups of people to work on them tend to require that each individual be a specialist in some particular area.
Beyond that, many group projects require larger quantities of creativity than a single individual can provide. A group project within a business is typically mission critical or very important to the business as a whole. Let's take a look at the vocabulary for this lesson. The first word we'll look at is
Unforeseeables.
not able to be foreseen.
Unforeseeables. Unforeseeables.
Our second word is
Heads up.
an advance warning of something.
Heads up. Heads up.
Our third word is
Request.
an act of asking politely or formally for something.
Request. Request.
Our next word is
Remarks.
written or spoken comment.
Remarks. Remarks.
Our next word is
Structuring.
give a pattern or organization to.
Structuring. Structuring.
Next we have
Pressure.
the use of persuasion, influence, or intimidation to make someone do something.
Pressure. Pressure.
Next we have
Final.
allow no further doubt or dispute.
Final. Final.
And our last word is
Decision.
the act or process of resolving a question.
Decision. Decision.
Let's have a closer look at the usage for some of the words and phrases from this lesson,
In the dialogue, we heard the verb to map out.
which means to plan.
This phrase refers to the idea of a map. Maps identify the major points of a particular area of interest.
In the same sense, mapping out a schedule is synonymous to creating an outline for the schedule.
In a previous lesson, we looked at the phrase to get something mapped out. The difference here is that to map out is a phrasal verb and can act on its own. Remember, these phrases can be used in any context except the very formal.
In formal situations, you would say something like, organize your day, or plan your schedule. Could you break this down for us?
To map out.
And one time fast.
To map out.
Next, we have the noun heads up, which means to take notice of something.
Which is part of an expression, to give you a heads up.
This phrase refers to the movement of lifting your head in order to pay attention to something. In a business context, this noun is sometimes used by managers as a verb to say, pay attention.
A manager might walk to the front of the room where his employees are working and say something like, "Heads up, everybody, we need to go over some things."
Could you break this down for us?
Heads up.
And one time fast.
Heads up.
Perfect. Let's take a look at the grammar point.
The focus of this lesson is auxiliary verb review.
In the dialogue, we heard the phrase,
"We're done for today, but we still have some work to do."
auxiliary verbs modify the conjugation or meaning of the main verb and are conjugated according to the subject of the sentence.
Here are a few examples of auxiliary verbs.
First, we have has. The example sentence is, Dustin has lived in New York for 10 years. The has is the auxiliary verb.
Another example would be, "They didn't leave the party last night." Here, it's the didn't.
Another one would be, I was making lunch when you telephoned. In this case, it's the was.
In another case, "Where are you going?" And here, it's the are.
Knowing correct auxiliary verb usage is key to tense usage. Every tense takes an auxiliary form of the verb.
There are 3 exceptions to this rule. First, the simple present positive. For example, she works at a bank.
The second exception is the simple past positive. For example, he bought a new TV last week.
And the last is the positive imperative statements. For example, hurry up.
There are also a number of short forms that take only the auxiliary form of the verb.
The first is the yes-no answer short forms. For example, do they live in Jamaica? And the answer is, no, they don't. Or, has he been to Brazil? The answer would be, yes, he has.
The next form that takes only the auxiliary is question tags. For example, he enjoys learning English, doesn't he? And she won't work with me, will she?
Our next auxiliary only form is the positive agreement or positive inclusion form. For example, he went to the bar last weekend. The answer is, so did she.
Another example would be, I'm sleeping very lightly recently. And the comment would be, so is he.
The last form that takes only the auxiliary form is the negative agreement or negative inclusion form. For example, they haven't worked here long. And the next comment could be, neither have I.
Another example would be, we won't be able to come next week. And the comment would be, neither will I.
Now let's do a quick review of auxiliary verb usage. First, we have do and does, which are used in the simple present question and negative forms. What time does he get up? Or, they don't drive to work, they take a bus.
Next is the past tense did. This is used in simple past questions and negative forms. When did they arrive yesterday? Or, he didn't finish his homework last week.
Next, we have is, are, and am, which are used in the present continuous form when talking about the future and with phrases like going to. Some examples are, they are working hard at the moment, and she's going to study medicine at the university.
Next is was and were. These are for the past continuous. For example, I was watching TV when you arrived, and what were they doing while you were cooking dinner?
Next, we have and has. These are used in the present perfect and present perfect continuous. How long have you lived here? Or, I've been working since 7 this morning.
Next, we have had, which is used in the past perfect and past perfect continuous. For example, he had eaten by the time I arrived. And she had been studying for 2 hours when he finally telephoned.
Lastly, we have will and won't. These are used for the future. For example, what will the weather be like tomorrow? And he won't understand.
That just about does it for today. Thanks for listening.
Bye for now.
Okay, Sarah, we've got to map out and finalize the entire seminar schedule today.
I know. It should have been finished by now, but there have been so many unforeseeables.
Such as?
Well, I called Alexei Brodowski, and he said he wouldn't be able to come. So I took him off the list and redrafted the schedule because some of the panel discussions depended on him.
So we need to find someone else just like him.
No, that's the unforeseeable part. He called me about 15 minutes ago and said his secretary had made a mistake and that he'd be able to come.
I wonder how many other delegates will do the same thing.
Well, hopefully not many. It's hard enough creating this schedule without having to rewrite it every 5 days.
Just as a heads up, both Daniel Giesbrecht and Jeffrey Nye have requested a schedule of the seminar as soon as possible so they can begin structuring their remarks.
So, no pressure.
Exactly.
What do you think?
I think we're finishing up, but we need a bit more input from the committee in order to make the final decisions.
So, summarizing, we're done for today, but we still have some work to do?
Sounds about right.